Hello, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Card Draw Podcast, a podcast tailored to focus on the person behind the cards or TCGs. And I have professional Lorcana player, TCG GOAT, Zach Bivens with me here today. Zach, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm great, Teddy. How are you?
I'm great. Finals week, but it just set championship, so that was always a fun time. Really cool to experience that for the first time. How was your set championship experience? We'll start off going over that because that just ended.
It was pretty amazing. I actually didn't get to go to as many as I wanted to, but I got my stitch, so all that matters there. But I
Yeah.
actually coached a ton of people. So far, the count's up to like I
Hmm.
think of people I coached. They won like 33 stitches or something, so pretty crazy.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I know you coached Eric Switzer, and he won four in the first
Yeah.
weekend, which was wild to see. I was able to secure a stitch myself, which was really fun. But I wanted to bring you on here because you have been playing card games for a while. And the first question I wanted to ask you, just what got you into trading card games? Family members, just as a kid, what got you into these type of games?
So I was in second grade when Pokemon came out, and that was a huge craze. So
Hmm.
I got red version for my birthday, fell in love with that, and that led to getting the cards. So I was mostly collecting those, but then Yu-Gi-Oh came out a few
Hmm.
years later. Watched the first episode one day after school and instantly hooked on that. So got the Kaiba starter deck. Favorite trading card of all time, definitely that Blue Eyes, and just played Yu-Gi-Oh
Yeah.
casually for a while. So Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh got me in there when I was really young.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I may date you, but I wasn't even born when those games first came to the U.S.
Yeah,
I like to do
you
it to a
you
lot of
dated me a
people,
few
but
times.
yeah, I tend to do that to people, whether it be in the Lorcana community or just the TCG space. Uh, but yeah, obviously, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, two of the biggest trading card games. That those two, along with Magic, probably considered the top three. Lorcana is making a run for it though, with its success initially. Uh, but let's talk about just the games you've played overall and your experience with those. What were your favorites? What ones would you not go back to? Talk about that real quick.
Yeah, so like I said, the first one I really played was Yu-Gi-Oh. So I played
Hmm.
that from the first day it came out in the U.S. Then I played some Versus System in middle school, which was a Marvel versus DC
Okay.
game. I was
Yeah.
actually really competitive at that. The game was pretty complex though, so I was always the only kid there at the tournaments.
Hmm.
But I was making top eights on the Pro Tour there when I was like 12
Yeah.
years old, so that was
Nice.
pretty sweet. When I got to high school, I kind of took a few years off of trading card games, but then I rediscovered Pokemon and actually played this time. Completely obsessed with that. Traveled the world, was a pro at that for a few years. Then I went to Digimon a couple years ago when it first came out. Um,
Yeah.
I learned how to play the game the day before regionals, and somehow got fourth place out of hundreds of people at a Digimon regionals.
that's that's amazing.
Yeah, reading everyone's cards, reading my own cards, but it was super fun. That was a ton of fun. Um, I didn't play that for too long because I didn't really like the direction of the game it was going in. So
Hmm.
it kind of stopped until Lorcana came out last year, and that's where we're at now.
Yeah, obviously Lorcana has been huge, but I'll touch on Pokemon because that's the game that I came from before Lorcana. I came in around the Sun and Moon start and all that. So favorite deck in Pokemon that you ever played? For me, I played it a lot more expanded, so I played the Durant discard,
Ooh,
mill, all that stuff. That was my jam when I played in high school. What was your favorite deck?
okay.
Lots of good options, obviously.
So I played Durant when it wasn't inexpanded, when it was new, and that was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Um, but I think Dialga Garchomp was like the first real deck I
Okay.
had, and I just loved it. Like it was pretty complex compared to the other decks, and it was just tons of fun. So
Hmm.
Dialga Garchomp, and then I played a Steelix deck, like Steelix Blissey Hill, a couple years later. That was really
Yeah,
fun.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'd go with those two.
Yeah, I remember seeing that Blissey deck run around and couldn't understand it as a youngin in the space. I know I played a lot of Mew towards the end of my high school days, which for me was 2 3 years ago. But I think Pokemon obviously it's the game is tailored to being obviously tutor and find the cards that you need. Uh,
Hmm.
Very different than a lot of other games. Do you think you would like to see that? Obviously, you're playing Lorcana now. Would you like to see stuff like that come to Lorcana, or you think Pokemon should just keep that and keep it away from other games?
Mm, that's tough. Yeah, it was such a shock coming to Lorcana because Pokemon was what I knew for so long, like completely different games. Um,
Hmm.
but I like how Lorcana is. I think we just keep it the way it is.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Obviously, I'll touch on Digimon real quick. You said you didn't like the direction that game was going,
Hmm.
but the top four at your first ever event, how did that feel going into something like that?
Oh, it was crazy. I definitely didn't expect it. It was after the second set came out, so there. I mean, it wasn't a huge card pool by any means, but yeah, it felt great. It was so much fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, now we'll go into Lorcana because obviously that is the game we both play. We're both in it and have been in it for a while in some capacity. Me with Glimmer Gang. You've started your YouTube channel, Lorcana Castle,
Mm.
which has been awesome to watch and hear from you. You've obviously been active on Twitter, but your big thing is you have topped a bunch of 1Ks. You've done really well so far. Obviously, you said you've been coaching. So, why does Lorcana mean so much to you? What does this game bring to you that maybe a different other TCGs haven't been able to bring?
Uh, well, really, it just means so much to me because there's nothing I like more than playing trading card games. And there hasn't been a game since Pokemon years ago that I just really felt like I could go all in on. Just because like I
Mm-hmm.
didn't like how Digimon was going. But Lorcana is kind of that game that fills the void that I've been missing all this time. Like there's nothing better than traveling with friends, going to events, playing against the best players in the world. So just it brings back all those awesome memories I have from the Pokemon adventures. So just filling that void that been missing for a while.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, I'll go back to the start of set one. Your renowned deck was Amber Steel. Do
Mm-hmm.
you miss that meta? Would you, if you got to play that just that meta again, would you go back, or do you like where it is with set three and set four obviously coming shortly?
Set one was amazing. I really liked it. I don't think I would go back just because I think it was kind of a solid format there at the end. Like you either played Amber
Mm-hmm.
Steel or Ruby Amethyst. You literally couldn't play another deck.
Yeah,
I don't think in set one if you wanted to be at the top tables.
yeah.
Um, and I think set three is just super diverse. You can play basically any deck and win. Like it's amazing. So I wouldn't go
Mm-hmm.
back, but I definitely loved set one.
Yeah, and then obviously set two was kind of overrun by Ruby Amethyst. That was everything running around. It was very hard to do anything and get topped if you weren't playing that. And personally, being a Ruby Amethyst player, I liked that because that was
Mm.
the deck I like to play. I love that mirror. I know I am probably one in a hundred that like playing that mirror, but that is one of my favorite matchups in Lorcana.
I can't believe you're
Uh,
one of those people.
Yeah, I get that a lot. People, I remember sitting, I think at my the the set champ I topped. It was three ruby amethyst and then one amber steel, and I got paired into the amber steel for the
Mm.
top four. And I'm like, I would, and it's been like an 8 hour day at that point, and I'm sitting there like, why couldn't I be playing the mirror right now? I would just, I would have been, I would have enjoyed it a lot more honestly. But it's TCGs
Yeah,
for you. Get paired up
I
in the
think
amber. Yeah.
set one Ruby Amethyst mirror match was pretty good, even though it took forever.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a huge fan of
Yeah.
set two Ruby Amethyst. It was like, did you get
No.
the Surfer Mini first? I don't know. Not
Yeah.
a Ruby Amethyst person.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, once like we've obviously gotten answers once we got Medusa and all that that's been able to
Hmm.
help with
Definitely.
the mini, and then obviously Crab did come in set two, so that was like Crab into
Yeah.
another mini. Uh, but yeah, that deck obviously it it isn't the I don't think it's the best deck anymore. People can make that argument, but I think it's
Yeah.
the most consistent deck if you want to try to top. Um, And I'll pose the question to you now. Would you rather play a deck like that is the most consistent that gives you the most outs to top, or a deck that can either go all in and just wipe the entire field if it hits the right matchups, or play a deck that is like Ruby Anthus where you can have an even matchup against anything?
I think it depends on the event. Like for set championships, a smaller tournament like that, I would play the consistent deck.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're mostly gonna be playing. You're not gonna be playing as the greatest players in the world. Not saying that they're bad by any means, just that it's a little
Mm-hmm.
different playing that than playing at like a massive tournament. So I would just go for the most
Yeah.
consistent thing possible at set championships. And then at the bigger events, that's when
Hmm.
I'm trying to craft some crazy deck out of nowhere that just beats the field.
Yeah, and with you bringing that up, you mentioned before the 2013 Pokemon World Championships. You
Mm-hmm.
crafted this meta deck, but just missed out on Top Cut. Explain that whole experience. Why is that still eating at you 11 years later?
I've let it go a lot, but definitely, yeah. So the meta was like Blastoise, Keldeo, Darkrai, Keldeo. Like it was a
Hmm.
very, very set in stone meta, and I had been working so long to build something that beat it, and I just couldn't do it until literally the night before the World Championships. So I came up with
Hmm.
this Garbodor, a Selgor deck that completely
Hmm.
dominated Darkrai, completely dominated the Plasma decks. Like it was the deck, but I just didn't have it refined, so it was a little inconsistent. Um, and I was doing amazing. I was down to the last round. If I won it, I'm in top cut. If I lose it, I'm out. And I've played the game well, and it comes down to the final turn. He has like 25 cards in his deck and only one single out. It's a plasma energy, his fourth one, and he draws it and
Hmm.
beats me. And I
Oh,
missed the top cut. And the top cut was filled with all those decks that I completely destroyed that I prepared for. So it's like
hmm.
I was that close to winning Pokemon World Championships. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so definitely can't get over that.
Yeah, and obviously Jason, probably one of the most renowned Pokemon players. Him
Mm-hmm.
and Tord are up there in the top two. It goes back and
Yeah.
forth between who's the best. He did end up going and winning that on his run back in that era. So if you, because obviously you were up there in Pokemon, you were top nine. You're ninth in the world, second in North
Mm-hmm.
America. How close was that to the end of your Pokemon days, or was that like more the beginning of your Pokemon days?
So playing competitively like that, I didn't do that very long actually. From like 2011, 2012, and 2013, I was like super
Hmm.
into it. Traveled to everything, invited to the World Championships, all that. So that was really my run there, like as a pro. Um, After that, I just kind of played casually and stuff, just cause life, college, all that
Yeah.
made it hard to do that. So that was basically my prime right then when Jason did that
Hmm.
2013.
So, can I ask how old were you then? Because you said college age. Were you
Yeah,
young college at that point?
yeah, I was like 19 or something. So yeah,
Well, there you go. That's how old I am. So that is really cool to see.
yeah,
Obviously, uh, a lot of different ages in TCGs. We are seeing
mm-hmm.
kids top tournaments. Obviously, Pokemon does it really well. They have the juniors, seniors, and masters
Mm-hmm.
divisions. At that point, the 19 is in masters. So walking into an event like that, did you feel on the young side, knowing that you were on the younger end of the master tournament? Did you feel like you fit in with everyone around you?
No, I definitely felt like I fit in a lot. I mean, most were around that age back then. Yeah,
Okay.
we were pretty much everyone was in their early 20s or younger or something.
Yeah, I know. For me, obviously, I went to a few tournaments. I remember Madison regionals. I don't know what. I think it was like my eighth, ninth grade year, around that age. Uh, I walked in playing Tapu Bulu, like all that stuff where you had to like get the energy, and it worked for
Mm-hmm.
me. I started 3-1, went into lunch. That was my first regional ever. I'm thinking, okay, if I get a few more wins, and I understood like idea, I could get into all of it, and I lost the rest of the day.
Oh
And
my
the
goodness.
next day, I played in a uh, challenge or a top or a cup, and I played the same
Mm-hmm.
deck and did not win a single game. And so that was kind of like my first taste of competitive TCGs, and where you can start 3-1 playing at the top tables, and then just downhill after that. Uh, so obviously, it wasn't the World Championships, but I can relate to that on a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of a level. Obviously, there are going to be lows in TCGs and life and all that. But talk about some of your proudest moments in any game you've played. Obviously, like I said, you were a very high level Pokemon player, high up in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that. Maybe Lorcana. What are some of these proudest moments you've had?
Yes, tons. Like I said, versus system as a kid, being the only kid, like playing at the Pro Tour, then topping at the Pro Tour. So that was definitely fond memories. The Digimon experience is pretty cool. All the Pokemon stuff, amazing. yeah, getting to write for sixprizes.com, which was massive back in the day. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so lots of that stuff, but definitely the Lorcana stuff is what I'm on now. Definitely proud of all the stuff that I've done. I've kind of set myself apart in the early Lorcana days, which took a lot of learning
Mm-hmm.
and work. So super proud of that.
Yeah, so obviously you say a lot of learning and work in
Mm-hmm.
Lorcana. For anyone watching or listening, can you kind of just explain kind of what that is to you? How do you go about learning these metas and these new cards? Because obviously we're in the midst of a whole new reveal season. We're getting a new set every 3 months, and it changes how TCGs are played. So can you kind of just explain like what goes through your head when you're building decks, defining a meta and stuff like that?
Yeah, you just pay attention to everything. Tournament results are the main thing. So take that,
Mm-hmm.
run with it, test all those decks. You just have to take the top decks, test them, see what cards are good or not, determine if they just had a really good run or if the deck is actually has legs, um, and then just
Mm-hmm.
testing as many games as possible. Make your testing count. Like don't be distracted during your testing. Play actual games so you're learning. Don't be looking at your phone, all that stuff. Just stay engaged. Um, yeah, I think just looking at tournament results, looking at the content creators, what decks do they say are the best? So you got to test those and be
Mm-hmm.
prepared for those. So yeah, just paying attention to everything.
Yeah, and I think we got really got the first taste of all these tournaments and all get so many results in such a quick amount of time with set champs behind us, and now we're only a few weeks out from Atlanta. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, first official because we've seen like they had the 10K in Georgia is coming up, 5K, which you top forward with a deck that no one was expecting
Yeah,
with the
it was
Amethyst
an it
Steel.
was
Like
an
it's just a
8K. But yeah,
8K, yes, right. Yes, 8K. Still, I mean, that kind of blew everyone out of the water. I
yeah.
remember talking with the other Glimmer Gang guys, and we're just, what is, and that was awesome to see. But obviously, like going into Atlanta with this bigger tournament, you said trying to figure out this meta and
Mm-hmm.
trying to, because it's like the very end of set three. That is really the last thing because 2 weeks later is Chicago, and that's set four. So
Mm-hmm.
going into Atlanta, obviously 3 weeks away. How are you preparing for that? Are you just what are you doing to prepare for these bigger events compared to the set champs?
So the biggest thing you can compare it to right now is the 8K that you're talking about. If so, what I did for that to create that crazy deck that no one saw coming, I looked and saw, like I was saying, all the tournament results. What everyone was saying on YouTube and all that stuff was Ruby Amethyst, Ruby Sapphire, Sapphire Steel. Those were the
Mm-hmm.
three decks everyone was pushing. And at bigger events like that, when you get to the top tables, it's going to be those decks. Like at set championships, you're going to play against everything. But at these bigger events, typically when you get to the top tables, it will be those meta defined decks. So I knew I was going to be playing against those three. Um, so I just crafted a deck to beat those three. And if I said if I play the other decks, then so be it. I just lose.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the mindset going into the bigger tournaments. If I can come up with
Mm-hmm.
one of those big decks that beat those three, I'll just sacrifice the rest of the matchups and go with it.
Yeah, and obviously like in that you did run into those auto losses, I believe,
Mm.
in top four. So what you were playing Amethyst Steel? I don't remember. Was that an Emerald Steel deck you ran into in top four, or
No.
was it something?
So in top four, it was Still Song.
Okay.
It was like it was the all-time low for Still Song that tournament, just because Ruby Sapphire had just
Mm-hmm.
completely taken off. So that dominates Still Song generally.
Yeah.
Sapphire still is good against it. So it was
Mm-hmm.
literally just the all-time low for Still Song. So I just said if I face it, I'll just lose to it, and I didn't face it till top four, so it
Yeah.
worked out.
Yeah. I mean, top four at an 8K is awesome to see.
Yeah.
Uh, And so now let's talk a little about set four because we have some of the cards. We don't have all of them. Uh, Anything that stands out to you so far? I don't know how much you've paid attention to that. For like Ursula's return, obviously, it's this set is more focused on the story and all that behind Lorcana, but also we're getting new cards. I think one of the biggest ones I'm looking forward to is that Shift Mulan. That is going to be a killer in Ruby, I think. But anything that has stood out from that set so far to you?
So I don't typically look super deep into this stuff ahead of
Okay.
time. I just saw some of the crazy singing together cards, like that's gonna
Yeah.
really change up the game. So looking forward to
Hmm.
seeing how that works and if it works with the three cost Ursula. Like, do you get to do it twice? Like, yeah, there's
Yeah.
a lot to figure out. I think the game's really going to change
Yeah.
with set four.
Yeah, and I think we were saying that before set three with the locations and all that, and obviously it has changed.
Yeah.
We see cards like or the Queen's Castle, Arles Legacy, and Scrooge or McDuck Manor making a charge, and I think we will see obviously more. We're going to see more locations in this next set, but no, we're probably like maybe half a year, maybe a little more than half a year out since the release of Lorcana. Personally, what are you the most proud of playing this game? Is it coaching? And we'll get to coaching in a little bit. Is it coaching, playing? What are you most proud of throughout this entire game, personally?
Definitely proud of all the tournament results for sure. But I know it sounds cheesy. I'm just kind of most proud of the mindset that I have now. Because when I was younger
Mm-hmm.
playing these games, I would always complain about luck, like, oh, I only lost to this person because I got unlucky or because I went second or whatever. Or I would complain about the
Yeah.
format and, just all that stuff everyone does. Um, so I've grown a lot as a person since then in the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely trying to spread
Yeah.
kindness with every interaction I have and just try to be a good human
Mm-hmm.
being, whether I win or lose. So definitely most proud of the
Yeah.
mindset that I have now.
Yeah. And that's awesome. I think obviously the TCG space can be very positive and very negative. We've seen just over the course on Twitter, Facebook, and Lorcana specifically, there's a lot of different takes on a lot of stuff that came from set championships. And if you're willing to answer the question, I will pose it to you. Thoughts on IDing?
Mhm.
Do you have opinion on that and all that? You
Uh,
obviously very interesting question going around the community right
yeah,
now.
yeah, and I mean, it's been part of games as long as I've been
Mm-hmm.
playing,
Yeah.
so I don't, I don't really see a problem with it. I mean, you're not taking a spot from anybody because you won the games first to get to that spot. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't think you're taking the spot from anybody. I totally get what people were saying, like you should have to earn it, but yeah, I mean, you're not taking the spot for anybody because if someone's 2-2 and you're 3-1. I mean, you just won more games than them. It just is the way it is. So I'm okay with
Mm-hmm.
it personally. And I think the 2 game format change takes it away anyway, so it
Oh yeah.
doesn't even matter.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously, once with the two game format that is switched, but once we get to top cut, you're playing best of three,
Mm-hmm.
and if you lose, you're done.
Yeah.
Uh, which kind of it does shake it up, and I think it'll change how Lorcana is played. And I guess I'll ask you that: do you think control decks are going to be something that is played in two game format now, knowing that if you don't win two, you're kind of at a disadvantage. Obviously, those control decks, if they don't go first a lot of the time, they are on the back foot. What are your thoughts on this two game format? How is it going to shake up the meta?
I think you'll still see all the different variants of decks personally. I do I do think aggro kind of has the advantage there in 2 game maybe if you
Mm-hmm.
had to pick one. But I think that you'll still see control decks and they'll do just fine. I actually think aggro has a harder time if they go second than a control deck. I think they really want to go first. So I
Yeah,
think you'll still see them.
yeah. And then, uh, just what do you hope for the future of Lorcana? Whether it's for the game, you personally, how are you looking towards the future of Lorcana, and where do you want to see it go?
I love everything they've done so far for the most part. So as long as they continue on this path, I don't see any problems.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like I mentioned with Digimon earlier, like it was such an awesome game in the beginning, and then the power creep just hit like a truck, just a couple sets in, like not too long in. So I
Mm-hmm.
think if they can manage that, like don't make the previous set cards completely worthless because that's what was happening with Digimon. You
Mm-hmm.
would play in your set 5 games and it'd be awesome, and then set 6 came along and it just completely blew up everything. You couldn't even play any of the cards basically from the previous set. So if
Okay.
we manage power creep, I think the game's going to last for a long time. They seem to be pouring a lot of resources into the game. Like they've quadrupled the cap size, so I'm pretty
Yeah.
optimistic as far as that goes. And as far as like for myself personally, like uh, just keep pounding away and keep working as hard as I can and go to all the tournaments. Like the second I saw that this game was getting released, I knew it was going to be massive just because the people behind it, the IP.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why
Yeah.
Pokemon's so massive. I don't think Pokemon's the greatest game ever personally, but the IP is the biggest in the world, so that's why it's basically the biggest game ever. So
Mm-hmm.
I think everything's going to be great. I think the future's super bright for Lorcana.
Awesome. Well, I do have one more thing, and I asked you. outside of TCGs, what you're a fan of, and you said you were a North Carolina fan, so I had to pull out the sweatshirt.
Nice,
Uh,
love it.
so just obviously, you said North Carolina basketball. I remember
Hmm.
during the final or during March Madness, you mentioned that on Twitter, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And
Hmm.
I know you're from the North Carolina area. You go to a lot of
Yeah.
tournaments with Franz, with Travers Tavern, and all that. Good, but I'm good buddies with
Hmm.
him. But basketball, where did that come from? Did you play growing up? How did the love for basketball come around?
So being in North Carolina, man, it's massive. Like, yeah, basketball is huge, and it's college basketball specifically, mainly because the
Mm-hmm.
Hornets are
Yeah,
miserable. But yeah, college basketball
yeah,
is absolutely massive here. UNC, Duke, Wake Forest, and NC State. Like, it's just the place to be for basketball. So
yeah.
you just kind of grew up with it. Like when I was
Mm-hmm.
in middle and high school, we would watch the ACC tournament on TV instead of actually doing schoolwork and stuff. Like it's just that much in our culture here. So.
Yeah. Being in Indianapolis, basketball is also
Mm,
huge here.
yep.
Going to school here. I'm from Chicago originally, so more of a baseball city up there. I grew up with baseball, but I get basketball. I love it. It's a great sport. Obviously, Indiana Fever just got Caitlin Clark. Pacers are in the playoffs. Purdue went to the final or the championship actually.
Hmm.
So basketball, really fun sport. But obviously, this is the TCG podcast. Lorcana is the game you're amazing at. I'm so thankful that you're able to hop on. Let everyone know where they can find you, whether it be on Twitter, YouTube, and whatnot.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Zach Bivens1. So on that all the time. YouTube, Lorcana Castle, and I've only posted 3 videos so far. It's been a couple weeks since I posted one, but working on one right now, and definitely going to
Awesome.
be on that regularly. So check out Lorcana Castle too.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me on this inaugural episode of the new podcast. If you guys want to follow Zach, all links will be down below. And thank you guys for watching.